Welcome to Sports CTO Talks. In this series, we will be connecting with industry leaders and technology experts where we will simplify sports. I am Ami, your guide on this journey through the minds of amazing leaders and the tech leaders who are shaping the sports industry. We will dive deep into discussions driving the industry from AI to cloud, from cybersecurity to sustainability. If it is sports, we are talking about it. Today, we have an interesting guest with us, Mr. Tom Vincent. He is head of Rezzil, leading its expansion into the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia by working with professional football clubs to elevate their cognitive training and injury rehab protocols using virtual reality. Prior to joining Rezzil, Tom's background is into sports sponsorship and marketing, where he generated sponsorship for sporting events and athletes, as well as working with football clubs in the Premier League and La Liga to create their global advertising revenue. We welcome you, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for inviting me on. Looking forward to having a conversation about all things tech and Rezzil.
Absolutely. Like today, he would be sharing about navigating challenges and how to drive the business growth. We welcome you once again, Tom, and over to you.
Thanks very much. So yeah, what do you want to know first of all? How do you want to start?
Like my first question to you is like, what is cognitive sports? What is cognitive sports training, and how does it enhance an athlete's performance beyond the physical training?
Yeah, sure. So to give a bit of an introduction into Rezzil, Rezzil is many things, but the core function of the business and the reason the business was created was actually to enhance cognitive training within professional football using virtual reality. So the way that's done is one of the challenges that football coaches and analysts have in particular is lack of cognitive data. So coaches have always been able to identify players that are quick, strong, good at passing, good at shooting, but we've never really been able to tap into the mental state of a player. So what Rezzil did many years ago is actually create a bespoke training platform, which is recreating real life football drills, putting players into pressure situations, and actually extracting data so that when they're performing these drills, we're actually seeing their decision making, like the reaction times, are they remaining accurate when they're under pressure? We can link it up to heart rate as well. So like the pressure pass drill, for example, which is a drill where a player will receive the ball and they have to pass into space and defenders are moving at them. We can see whether their heart rate is increasing while they're doing that. And ultimately, all this data actually is able to help the player improve their performance. Coaches and analysts can look at this data and actually be able to work with the player to say, well, your reactions are very good. You're very quick thinking on your feet, but when you put under pressure, your accuracy is slightly down because maybe you're rushing with certain decisions. So very complicated and high tech, but it's actually been able to be simplified so that these drills are drills that players have seen before, but it's actually just been able to extract data whilst they're doing that as well. And in addition to cognitive training, it's also kind of taken on a life of its own with injury rehab as well. Particularly ACL injuries where players can be out injured for sort of 12 to 18 months at a time. So they're not actually able to, even kick a ball sometimes for 12 months. So with the drills that we've got on the Rezzil Index platform, it actually means that because it's low impact, players can make football movements quicker in their recovery. So when they do finally return to action and they're on the pitch, the motion of being in a pressure situation is not alien to them because they've actually been performing this in virtual reality. And I think that's the great thing about VR is that you can create any scenario, any situation. So yeah, that's been helping football clubs for many years in the UK and Europe. Obviously the Premier League clubs are, the pioneers of this technology. And then part of my role is bringing this sort of east of Europe into the Middle East, into Asia, into North Africa, to be able to introduce this and sort of bring it to more football clubs and help more players develop their cognitive skill set.
Okay. So, like, how can schools and grassroots sports programs integrate cognitive training to develop, when you're talking, especially for young athletes?
Yeah, so to take Rezzil Index, for example, the good thing about that is even though it was initially conceived as supporting elite football players. Obviously, Premier League players in England were the first to use this technology. But the great thing is that there's varying different levels on there depending on ability as well. Obviously, if you're a Premier League player, we'll make the tests and we'll make the drills obviously a lot more difficult so that they can, replicate what they're going to be facing sort of week in, week out in the Premier League. But yeah, it's a good point with grassroots and with schools, obviously players that are at the start of their journey sometimes. So there is ways that we can kind of make the drills a little bit more easier so that they're more comfortable when they're doing this. But of course, we're still extracting the data as well. So yeah, there's varying different sort of levels of difficulty on our platform so that we cater for all. Because I think when you want to advance, by working with as many people as possible, then you have to make it so that everyone is able to take part. And I think that's the core thing that we've got in place that helps us to work with all different levels of player.
Okay, so as you were saying this, like, what is the biggest challenge, or what are the biggest challenges in scaling the sports technology business? And like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so for me, I think the biggest challenge is actually changing attitudes. I think naturally everyone's always skeptical of new technology. People have always done things a certain way for a long period of time, so it's no different in sports as well. Within a professional football club, coaches and analysts, they've got their for many years. So actually being able to change the ecosystem, the infrastructure, change the attitudes of wanting to bring in new technology, I think is the biggest thing. I suppose the only way to overcome that is to build trust, show them the value that we can bring as well. Obviously now we've got lots of great case studies with clubs, but obviously back in the day, it was a very new concept. So, we're very fortunate to have, good, strong relationships and actually show people that this is what we're doing. But yeah, I think attitudes is always the big thing. And I've noticed that by bringing it into new markets as well. It's great to have Premier League clubs on board, but whatever market you're trying to target, people want to see what you've done with, similar clubs to them, clubs that have got the same sort of infrastructure as them as well. So I think that's a challenge across all tech, not just VR, not just Rezzil. I think whenever something new comes out, it's about actually showing that you're going to add value and not just be something that's going to come and go and something new will replace you in a couple of years' time.
True, true, true. I so agree. So, like, how do you balance innovation with the commercial viability in the sports solutions?
Yeah, so innovation's very important. I think boundaries are always being pushed, and I think that's how we continue to evolve, within technology, but also sort of society as well. It's always about sort of learning from, what can you do better and implementing that. So yeah, innovation's important, but I think in order to make something more accessible to grow, it has to be at a price point where it is more accessible to more clients. If we created something that, from a budget perspective, only elite football clubs can use it. That does stunt our growth a little bit because we obviously want to be able to, impact as many football players as possible. So I think finding that balance is always key between, having this incredible technology that can be implemented, but also making it accessible to as many people as possible. And you mentioned like grassroots as well, lots of private football academies, schools, younger players that can actually benefit probably more than some of the elite players because, when you take into account, the data and what these drills are actually doing. I think if you're using this product at 16, 17, 18 years of age, I think by the time you're 21, 22, you'll be far more advanced in all these cognitive skills than somebody that's maybe sort of come into it later in their career as well. So I think, yeah, to answer that question, it's about balancing innovation with a price point that means that you can, yeah, make this accessible to as many people as possible.
Okay. So, like, how do you manage the regulatory compliances? Because there might be many, I'm sure. So, like, how it is managed in the industry?
Yeah, I think network is so important. I think, it's good to have relationships with other tech companies as well that are maybe in the VR space for us or even in, a general sense. It's good to know the right people that have kind of been where you've been. If you're entering a new market, it's always great to have contacts that you can network with that are in that market as well and sort of help you to navigate the regulatory challenges. I think every market's different, so I think that certainly helped me, being able to speak to industry experts on a day-to-day basis, being able to connect with people that, have been in a similar situation as well. Um, I think, yeah, compliance challenges is a topic that we could speak about for days, but I think to not go on too much about it, I think, yeah, just understanding, who you can speak to that can help you go navigate those challenges is very important.
So, like as you were mentioning, that you are looking after multiple regions and multiple countries. So, like, how do you manage country-wise? Like, how do you segmentize that, and how technology, the sports, the traditional sports player, like, how it is different in different countries, and how do you manage that?
Absolutely, yeah. Every market is different, and I think the most important thing is to understand the market, what works in that market, speak to the experts in that market as well. So, to use, an example with myself, when I came on board with Rezzil, looking after a particular region, but even within the Middle East, North Africa, Asia, there's so many different attitudes and cultures and languages as well. So it's about understanding, the people that can help you sort of get your foot in the door, really. So Egypt is a good example of that. I identified when I come into this role that Egypt is a massive football market. Football is another religion in Egypt. But Egypt has been a bit of a closed shop in terms of, implementing new businesses and new technology. So it was very simple, just be able to understand who the right people are to speak to, people that have got good, strong relationships with the football authorities and the football clubs in Egypt. And, we're very happy to be working with a partner that has kind of done this before. They've bought new technology from outside of Egypt into Egypt, implemented it into football clubs. So yeah, working alongside them has been great and helped us to make good traction in the market and enter the Egyptian market. But I think yeah, it is as simple as sort of understanding the types of clubs that you'll be working with. Every market in particular, there'll be different infrastructure, there'll be different ways that football clubs make decisions. In the UAE, obviously where I'm based, a lot of football clubs are owned by members of the royal family, so it's all very government backed. So, when you're trying to, do business with these clubs, it's about understanding the protocols of working with a government and how they link to be able to actually create business opportunities as well. So, yeah, there's no one size fits all solution. But yeah, I think it's just about, doing the research, speaking to the right people. I think that's always key. And I think my network that I've been able to build has helped me so much with the advice and, who to speak to and how to get around that. But that's also a challenge, but it's also exciting as well because, it takes me to lots of wonderful places and meet new people and understand different ways of working. And you can always learn from other people as well. I think, it's about kind of leaving sort of ego and arrogance at the door sometimes and saying, I'm in your market now. How do you work? How can we, be able to adapt to that as well? So yeah, it's challenging but exciting.
True, true. It is challenging, but it is always interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, what role does fan engagement help in the technology, and how does it, like, what role does it play, and in driving business also?
Yeah, so fan engagement is very important for Rezzil. So obviously I've spoken about sort of the cognitive and injury rehab side of our business, but on the flip side as well, fan engagement, we've been able to develop this technology that means it's able to be used by anyone, not just professional football players. So we have a partnership with the English Premier League, and they invested into Rezzil, enables for us to be able to create the first ever officially licensed Premier League VR game. So fans of the Premier League, with VR headsets at home can play, in their favourite stadiums. They can recreate real goals from the Premier League. So, this is actually able in, helping the brand grow as well. So yes, on the one side, it's a very B2B product where we want to be working with as many football clubs as possible. But in order to build the brand, build awareness, make more people familiar with what Rezzil is capable of, yeah, the fan engagement side has been huge, and the game's been a great success. And we've done a lot of activations on the ground with clubs and with brands, with events. If anyone was in the Champions League final in London in May 2024, they could have, seen a Rezzil setup where they can, take part in some of the football challenges that we had in like a virtual Wembley Stadium, because obviously the final was being held there as well. So I think they do come hand in hand, because certainly, at Rezzil, we're trying to grow a brand that can benefit, obviously the elite football side with cognitive training, but yeah, it also means that, people can live out their dreams in their bedrooms as well. You can, score goals for your favorite club in your favorite stadium. So yeah, it's incredible to be able to have the two sort of areas of the business that think to take the answer outside of Rezzil as well, just as a general sort of, technology answer. I think, yeah, fan engagement, it's about, getting the product into the hands of as many people as possible, because it's all well and good, talking about what your technology does, but you need people to actually experience it themselves. And, that's how you kind of sort of grow awareness of a product as well, through showing value to people, and then that's how you sort of go from there. So yeah, I think fan engagement has a very big role to play in driving the B2B side of a business as well. Absolutely.
True. So like, you were talking about cognitive training. So I just wanted to understand, what does cognitive training, like, does it or does it not, improve decision making, the reaction time, the mental resilience, for the athletes across, like, if you could just explain.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, with the work that we're doing, with football clubs, we actually do a lot of research projects with universities as well, and I think that really kind of validates the work that we're doing as well, because there is actual statistics to prove that the cognitive training, not just through Rezzil and not through VR, but any kind of cognitive training, can actually impact performance on the pitch as well. So we've done lots of studies, for example, with the French Football Federation, where they were using the Rezzil Index platform for 20 minutes per week to kind of work on their scanning and awareness and vision when they're on the pitch. And yeah, we saw a massive increase in their ability to do that as well. I think it was 49% increase in their vision and their scanning when put into a real life situation. So yeah, a lot of the university research that we do really, yeah, helps to validate what we're doing. And I think that actually gives you a lot of, confidence if someone's invested in this product, or, as I say, changing their attitude to want to implement this technology. There's a lot of data to suggest that, yeah, cognitive training in VR can really impact performance on the pitch. Absolutely.
Okay. So, like, how do you balance the needs of elite players and amateur players?
Yeah, so I think it's like I mentioned before, having that one size fits all solution where you can increase the difficulty, but the core function of what you're doing is the same. So I think it's about, yeah, making it accessible as well. If the drills were too difficult for amateur players, then it's not really sort of relevant data. You want to be able to make sure that the data is relevant for whoever's doing that as well, and what you can improve on. But I think even taking that out of the equation, if you're putting anybody through the Rezzil index test that we have, if your reaction time scores are very low, then that's something that can be improved, and whether that's at the elite level or whether that's at the grassroots level. What Rezzil Index does is actually, provide data for the key characteristics to perform cognitively. So I think, yeah, it's about finding that balance again, that classic word of balance, but finding the balance between how you can impact all different levels of player at whatever stage they're at and whatever age group they're at as well.
All right. So, like, what are the key or a few points, what are success metrics according to you, like, you being into the industry from such a long time for growing sports technology as a business?
Yeah, so I think data is very important. I think, yeah, to be able to continue to grow and work with more professional clubs, you need to be providing value to them. And I think data is a big thing. I think, decision making in football now is based on data. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, clubs might see a few video clips of a player and decide to sign the player based on that. But now there's so much data available that when you make a decision, you're confident that you're making the right decision because you've done so much research into the player. So Rezzil's, kind of trying to take care of that on the cognitive side as well. So when players are being put through their paces and, there's data for how many kilometers they're running during a game and their accuracy with their passing and everything like that. Yeah, the cognitive side is something that maybe has, been underlooked in the past or overlooked, sorry. So I think now with, say there's so much more data that can be produced. And what the Rezzil Index platform is doing is, providing, I say, things like that have never really been able to be measured before. So, reaction times, composure, how can you, deal with pressure, things that are very difficult to sort of put numbers on if you're just looking with the good side of technology where you can actually really make an impact and create good value for whoever's using it.
Okay. So today, the trends are changing very quickly into the technology industry. So how to stay ahead of it and how to grow with the evolving trends.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think always, very classic answer, but listening to clients' feedback as well, because you don't want to become stale, you don't want to stand still, you want to constantly be evolving and actually be invaluable. Otherwise, as I say, something else could come along that takes your place. So for me, the most important thing is, if we're working with professional clubs, let's understand what they like about it. There might be things they don't like about it, and then it's important to constantly be evolving and actually continuing to create value for them. So I think, to stay ahead of trends, it's actually sometimes as easy as just listening to the people that you're actually working with, because they can kind of guide you in the right direction as to how you can improve. And I think it's important to stay informed as well, understanding the market, understanding what's happening in tech, in sport, in the market that you're operating in as well, having the right network around you, people that are subject matter experts, understanding sort of from them what's happening with their businesses as well. So very cliche answers, but I think that is how you stay ahead, is just to, make sure that you are one step ahead, basically, by listening to the right people.
Okay. So when you're talking about this, what are the leadership qualities a person or as a company, what should they have or what should they learn as and when they are growing into the industry?
Yeah, I think similar to the answer I just gave, actually, always being informed, understanding the market is very important, but also showing that you are, an expert in that particular field. A lot of people like to just talk and tell everyone how great they are, but I think that doesn't really count for anything unless you can actually show that. So I think it's about sort of leading by example, by actually practicing what you preach. And if there is things that, need to be implemented or changed, being able to adapt to any situation. I think that's how you can maintain being a market leader. And I think even if you look outside of technology and sport, companies that have been at the top of their game for many years, they're always adapting to new types of customer, new types of marketing strategy. So being able to adapt is very important, and showing that you're still adding value, or you're able to implement new ideas all the time to keep evolving and innovating.
Okay, these days it is about startups. So, how and what can you share about, how to secure fundings and investment and what is happening in according to today's trends?
Yeah, so Rezzil, for example, has many investors that are from the world of professional football. Legends of the game, people like Thierry Henry, Vincent Company, Cesc Fabregas, just to name a few. They're well-known names, World Cup winners. So, obviously having the right people on board is important, because I think if you're trying to make an impact in your industry, you want to be able to target the right people that can help you do that as well. And I think it really validates the product. So from Rezzil's point of view, yeah, having, some of the most amazing minds in football sort of, investing in your product and wanting to help you actually grow. I think it says a lot about what the product is. So I think that's kind of relevant for any startup that's actually looking to secure funding. It's about, have you got the right people on board that can help you and take you on that journey? Who are you looking to target? What type of company are you? And have you got the right people that can help you do that? So I think it's interesting because Rezzil is very established in the UK and Europe, but when it comes to, entering new markets, which is obviously the role that I'm supporting Rezzil with. It is actually effectively a startup in some markets because, it's all well and good if you've worked with the Premier League, that's great. But, when you're coming into a country where you've never worked with a club before, you haven't really got anything to show for it. So, yeah, I'd say having the backing of the right people really validates the product and the business. And it shows you that, yeah, you're on the right track maybe because you've got people that can help you to increase the presence and the brand.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, like, like as you are there in the industry from a long time, what are a few failures, which you have encountered in the past, and what you have learned, and what you would like, to pass to the future generation?
I think one thing I've learned the hard way is that sort of entering a new market, you always have to treat it like a startup. I think previous success is great. Having something to build on from, previous successes of a business in one particular market is obviously amazing. But when you enter a new market, if you've got zero presence, you're basically starting again. So that's one thing I've learned, like you're a startup. Even if you're very established elsewhere, I think as I mentioned before, every market's different. Every market will react differently to your product. Every market will react differently to how you go about your business. So I think that's a lesson that I've learned. Even with Rezzil, recently, sort of when I joined Rezzil, I was very excited about, all of the Premier League clubs that we've worked with, clubs in Europe. But I realized very quickly that a lot of people in the Middle East were like, that's fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, we want to give you all of our money straight away. It's about, as I say, building trust, building value, showing what you can do. We're working with clubs, which is great, and that will help us to work with more clubs, and the network just continues to build from there. So I think, yeah, treat every new market like a startup is the thing that I've learned across my tenure here, and also in other businesses as well. When I moved out to the Middle East, again, established company in another market, but doesn't really count for much out here. You've got to prove yourself all over again, which is challenging, but it is exciting if you like the hustle.
Patience and persistence, what I
Absolutely.
understood.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
So, like, a quick three takeaways, how to drive business growth for all the viewers, all the audience who is listening.
Yeah, I think it's just, as I say, understanding the needs of being able to prove yourself as well. I think, yeah, like I say, a lot of people, like to talk about, how amazing the product is or what they can do, but sometimes you actually have to sort of show that first. So you mentioned it, yeah, patience and persistence. Just keep doing the right things, keep understanding, how you can adapt to different challenges that come up. Sometimes you need to alter your strategy completely. There's nothing wrong with that if that's going to help you have success. And I think from a strategy point of view as well, a lot of people might look at a strategy and say it's actually, A, B, and C, that's the strategy. But for me, it's about actually understanding what type of company you want to be, what type of people do you want to work with. Sometimes it's okay to turn down opportunities because it doesn't quite fit what you want to do. Yeah, just believing in what you're doing and being able to adapt if you need to, is the key thing. But always learning. I don't think anyone's ever got all the answers. Yeah, always learning, always adapting.
Absolutely. So, like, we'll move on to the next segment now. It's called the
Okay.
rapid fire round. You will have to be very quick in answering the questions I ask. You absolutely cannot think.
Okay, let's
Okay.
go.
One word to describe the future of sports technology.
Exciting.
What's the coolest sports tech innovation you have seen recently?
Rezzil.
Okay. If you had to pick one sport to test all new tech on, what would it be?
I'd say football because it's the most globally participated sport, so there's a lot more data available.
Okay. VR training or AI powered analytics, which excites you more?
I'd say VR training because it gives you real data, whereas AI is more predictive, what could happen, whereas VR is this is what's happened. That's why I like that.
Absolutely. One tech buzzword you hear too much.
Disruption.
Okay. Which athlete do you think would make the best tech entrepreneur?
No idea. Probably someone who's quite innovative and has been able to bring, new philosophies in. Maybe someone like Pep Guardiola, Man
Oh,
City manager, because he's quite innovative. So someone like him, possibly.
okay. What's your go-to pump up song before a big meeting?
I don't really have a pump up song, more just any sort of British indie band. That's my sort of genre that I like. So probably something like that.
Okay. Which stadium or venue has the best tech experience?
It's a hard one. I've been to like over 150 stadiums in my life, but I can't think of one off the top of my head that I don't know. I'd probably say it's probably one of the new stadiums that are being built for the Saudi World Cup. I think the one at Qiddiya is going to be quite innovative. So I'll say one that hasn't been built yet, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Last, AI as your coach, exciting or intimidating?
Uh, exciting. Yeah,
You cannot
exciting.
think. Okay.
That's
Okay.
exciting.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the next segment. Here you will have to answer one single question in 30 seconds.
Okay.
How do you see AI and data analytics shaping the future of sports technology from the business
Um,
angle?
Yeah, so I sort of touched on it earlier. I think with more at stake than ever before, if you think about football, you think about how much is on the line, obviously with the amount of money that's in the game. I think, as I said, decisions are being made purely on data. So I think there'll be more dependence on data now backing up decisions that are being made. I don't think football clubs will, make a hunch decision anymore. I think every decision when it comes to investing money in technology or a player or anything, basically, it will be on, can the data support that this is the right decision to make? So I think data's powerful if you know how to use it and it's used in the right way. So I think to answer the question, yeah, decision making will be made purely on data, and that will shape the future of sports tech businesses because whoever can provide the most valuable data will be at the top of the table.
Thank you, Tom, for your wonderful insights and joining us today.
No worries. Thanks very much. It was a pleasure to be invited to come on, and yeah, hopefully there was some good information in there if anyone is interested.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was Tom sharing his experience today. Thanks everyone for joining us and stay in tune. We'll meet next time in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring.